So here's going to be a review for the series Daredevil. I watched the entirety of the show as well as phase 1 of the Defender saga prior to the debut of Daredevil Born Again. For those unfamiliar with Daredevil and the Defender saga, originally it was a Netflix produced show yet set in the Disney MCU. The lines were always somewhat blurred though if it was really canon with the sacred timeline, as the movies never referenced the events of these shows. But the shows would sometimes reference the movies, referring to the Battle of New York and the Avengers as the incident. But a few years after Daredevil and the rest of those Defender shows were canceled, they've officially been integrated into the MCU proper, or at least Daredevil has anyway, through Spider-Man No Way Home and the Disney Plus shows Hawkeye, She-Hulk, and Echo. The original run of the Daredevil series started in 2015 and had 3 seasons from 2015 to 2018. He was also in The Defenders, which took place in between Season 2 and Season 3 of Daredevil, but that won't be part of this review. That's a review for another time. In this show, Matt Murdock is a blind criminal lawyer by day and the masked vigilante Daredevil at night, protecting the city from forces looking to harm it. In talking about the series overall first, before I get to season by season, this show takes a Dark Knight trilogy-like approach to the handling of Daredevil in the story. This means grounding everything in realism, as if these out there scenarios could actually happen. Nothing comes across as campy or out there in the series, as is expected with all comic book adaptations these days. You still of course get what you want out of Daredevil's enhanced senses and superb combat skills, both of which are awesome. There's also a grandness and scope to the storylines. There's no simple ABC type storytelling featured in this show. The seasons are rich in storylines, character narratives, and rewarding payoffs for its setups. Now, one of the best things about Daredevil as a character is, like Spider-Man, he's one of the few MCU characters now whose stories rely on the duality of his secret identity. For Daredevil, it's blind lawyer by day, costume ninja vigilante by night. This series shows it's a tough act to keep up, as the lies and deception that Matt constantly does to the people around him eventually reaches its breaking point. The way Matt goes about his business, especially in Season 3, he comes across as an addict or psychopath, and his friends tell him as much. As the series goes on, though, it's tough to have a lot of sympathy for Matt, especially in Seasons 2 and 3, where at first he lets a lecturer interfere with his work life, and then in Season 3 he lets his friends believe he's dead for an extended period of time. All of this makes Matt an extremely complex individual, which we see play out in all 3 seasons. Even with the iconic Daredevil supporting characters and villains present in this series, at its core is the balance of camaraderie and often tension of Matt and his companions Foggy Nelson and Karen Page. I love this trio, I love all of these actors in these roles, and I love seeing them back together for Born Again. Each of the 3 seasons here is 13 episodes, with each episode being about 50 minutes long. And the great thing with that, and this not being a 2-hour film, is that means you get time to give rewarding development to all the series' characters, stories, and ideas, to where nothing gets rushed over. I love that he spends almost the entirety of Season 1 in the black suit before he truly becomes Daredevil. It's a beautiful and rewarding payoff the way it's done. The same could be sung with giving proper attention to the core characters in the Daredevil mythos, in Kingpin, Elektra, and Bullseye, for Seasons 1, 2, and 3 respectively. Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, is one of the greatest characters in comic book history, and that reputation is only elevated by Vincent D'Onofrio's masterful performance. Fisk is truly the Thanos of New York City crime, in how he's a master schemer, always 2 steps ahead, and a force to be reckoned with in combat. As good as some media incarnations have been, and obviously the OG comics, the portrayal shown here officially set the standard for the character, and that's saying something. I don't think there's great payoff for Elektra's story in Season 2. I was annoyed with the character at first, but it did get better once more was revealed. I think the real payoff for that character is in the Defenders, where she reaches her full potential. On that subject, if you're new to the series, you definitely want to watch The Defenders in between Season 2 and 3 of Daredevil. Otherwise, the beginning of Season 3 won't make a lot of sense. I'll save my thoughts for Bullseye once I talk specifically about Season 3. Consistently in all 3 seasons, though, is fantastic hand-to-hand fights. Daredevil is among the best adept hand-to-hand fighters in Marvel, with its combination of heightened senses and combat training. Every fight scene in Daredevil just delivers on phenomenal choreography, brutality, and maximum effort from its stars. The Daredevil hallway fight in Season 2 and Matt's prison escape in Season 3 are just pure works of art. Because of Daredevil's lack of killing folks, it's not Punisher-level brutality, but some scenes definitely push it. The brutality isn't just limited to the fight scenes. As this show is rated TVMA, that means it can really push the level of violence when it comes to characters who don't mind killing a person or two. In terms of level of violence, the scenes that'll definitely get an OMG reaction out of you are Kingpin's door kill scene in Season 1 and Punisher's hallway fight in Season 2. All I could think after watching these scenes was, holy shit, this takes place in the same universe as Ant-Man or a baby tree dancing to Michael Jackson. Those are my general thoughts on the series as a whole, but now I'm going to narrow things down season by season. Season 1 feels very raw, kind of a natural first chapter for someone taking on a full-time vigilante career. Superhero stories are only as good as their villains, and Kingpin is established as a hell of a force to be reckoned with. Just as tough as the emotional toll Matt's crusade as Daredevil takes on himself and those around him. The progression of the Daredevil story is very rewarding, along with the supporting characters, and of course his battle against Fisk is just awesome. I even didn't mind when the main story got somewhat sidetracked 20% of the time when it came to the stuff with the organization known as the Hand, and that's because it was properly implemented into the overall narrative. To sum it up, Season 1 of Daredevil is excellent.
Darkness is the light.
I'm just trying to make my city a better place.
Daredevil Season 2 is an absolute juggling act in balancing the Punisher storyline and Elektra re-entering Matt's life. I love the Punisher stuff, and that's the main focus of roughly the first 1/3 of Season 2. Just everything when it comes to that action, violence, the Frank Castle trial, or just his interactions with Daredevil were great. The Elektra story is tied to the Hand, which leads to the main threat of the whole Defenders arc. But I believe that stuff was actually the worst part of those Defenders shows, and I don't think it was very good here. And even if I liked the Hand stuff more if it was done better, the problem is it has nothing to do with the Punisher story first established in Season 2, leading to a disjointed story that's jumping all over the f***ing place in the second half. What saves Season 2 is the Punisher stuff, the fights. I mean, that single-shot hallway fight is amazing. And it's the season where you see Matt in the actual Daredevil costume the most. But with the issues Season 2 had, it came close to being meh for me, but there's just enough good stuff to where I say I mostly still liked it, but barely. Daredevil Season 3 takes place after the Defenders and thankfully ditches anything that has to do with the Hand and goes back to what made Season 1 great, and that's focusing on Daredevil's crime-fighting crusade against Wilson Fisk. The season's story is just so epic in story scope, character narratives, and that feeling of darkness and inevitability, with Kingpin being a force who cannot be denied, in the grip and control he has on the entire city, specifically shown here, the FBI. What takes things to the next level is seeing the final core character from the Daredevil mythos brought to life in this series in Bullseye. The 2003 movie took a campy but I thought fun approach to the character, but what's done with Agent Poindexter here fits the grounded direction this series took, and the results are f***ing awesome. The setup and build up to where he becomes that unhinged character showing what he can do is just so good, and they made the most out of his godly marksman abilities, showing it in the most deadly and awesome way possible. Those fights with Matt and Poindexter were sensational, and that three-way fight you get during the climax was just the cherry on top to a season where calling it a yeah honestly does not do it justice. If you were to do the math on my rating for all 3 seasons of this show, that would average out to this show being excellent. Although if you were to take out my thoughts on Season 2, it would take that grade to the next level.
Who are you?
I'm Daredevil.
While I, like many, was upset when the show was initially canceled in 2018, I came to realize that Season 3 actually would have worked fine as an ending, given how it actually provides closure in an end of a trilogy kind of way. But I, of course, was beyond excited to see Matt Murdock's crusade as Daredevil continue in Daredevil Born Again, in an official Disney-produced MCU series that will hopefully make good use of the best elements from Daredevil and the entire lineup of Defender Saga shows in Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and The Punisher. Look out for those reviews eventually. So that'll do it for this review of the Daredevil series. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.